Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I'm Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are breaking down the 2024 season of the Detroit Lions. We're going to give the absolute lowest floor possible for the Lions and then the absolute highest ceiling. And so we're going to recap all that at the end of the video, so you're going to want to stay for the entire time. But before we get into it, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the Tracy Take, and also tackle that bell to get notified when new videos come out. The NFL season is just a few weeks away, and coming week one and every single week after that, Brian and I, we're going to have weekly prediction videos come out for all of the Lions games that you're not going to want to miss. So be sure to like this video, subscribe, and also tackle that bell to get notified when those videos come out. Ryan, let's quickly recap what the Lions improved on this offseason. And I would say, to me, immediately would have to say pretty clear and obvious decisions to focus on the secondary. I think they traded away one of their third-round picks because going into they had four.
Yeah, for Carlton Davis.
Yeah, and so then you go and look at that. Their first three picks were all to the cornerback position: Terry Arnold, Enos Rakestraw, and then Carlton Davis as well in their third-round pick. That's who they traded Tampa Bay for. So really wanted to improve on that secondary. That was one of the issues that they had last year, 27th overall in passing yards. Some of that I will say is maybe a little bit misleading just because they had a lot of shootout games. That being said, though, they did need to overall just improve on the secondary as well because Aiden Hutchinson leading the way, that front seven's already one of the best just with how good he is. But what are some other areas you felt the Lions improved on in the 2024 offseason outside the secondary?
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to say that front seven, I think you look – they got Marcus Davenport in free agency. One of the big things – so Aiden Hutchinson had a very good year for them, but they were still 24th in sacks with only 41. So getting that number a little bit higher. You look hopefully maybe they'll get a few more coverage sacks, but adding Marcus Davenport as well, and then getting Mekhi Wingo from LSU. He's a little bit more of a pass-rushing defensive tackle, maybe create some interior pressure. But going there, I think that's where they could improve. They did lose Jonah Jackson to the Rams as well. They drafted a couple offensive linemen, Giovanni Manu, actually from the CFL, and then Christian Mahogany from Boston College, who we thought was actually going to go in the third round. They got him in the seventh. So good value there. All in all, I just think this team, Jameson Williams is going to be in his first full season in the NFL. In year three, he showed some promise last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown got a big contract.
Well, let's wait. The season hasn't started yet, so anything can happen.
Well, no. Well, fair. Okay, Jameson Williams for the first time is starting week one in an NFL season in his third year.
I'm just trolling.
But I just think they had all the pieces last year. I think they lost and replaced some pieces and maybe improved in the secondary. And so I think turning that into possibly a strength could be the best thing for this team. So speaking of this year, let's get into their floor and ceiling predictions. Starting off, they host the Rams on Sunday Night Football. Matthew Stafford makes another return to Detroit. Then in week 2, they have Tampa Bay. Week 3 at Arizona. Week 4, hosting Seattle on Monday Night Football. They have an early bye in week 5, and then in week 6, they're at Dallas for a revenge match there. Really, I think they could win all of these games. I think they could go 5-0 as their ceiling to start. I think 3-2 is probably their floor. I do not see them losing to Dallas. And Seattle has just kind of had their number the last few years and been able to put up a lot of points against them.
Yeah, they had a great game in Detroit last year. And so it's funny, actually.
And a great game in Seattle 2 years ago.
Yeah. Their three games, the 3 home games during this stretch are actually all repeats from last year. The Rams and then Tampa Bay as well. Then the next week, and then Seattle and Detroit had a great game in week 2 of last year. I'm pretty sure it's week 2. And so Detroit should have won. So I can agree with you there. I think 3-2 might be the floor, but there's no reason in my eyes. I mean, I think this Lions team they are Super Bowl contenders. So to me, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to beat all these teams here. When it comes then to their next set of 6 games, week 7 at Minnesota, week 8 hosting Tennessee, week 9 at Green Bay, week 10 at Houston on Sunday Night Football, week 11 hosting Jacksonville, and week 12 at Indianapolis. To me, I would say more than likely they're probably going to lose one of the games on week 9 and week 10 at Green Bay or at Houston. So that's where I think, to me, ceiling wise, I'm capping it at 5-1 for me.
Yeah.
But floor wise, though, I could say maybe 3-3. I think maybe if they lose a game between Jacksonville or Indianapolis, I mean, maybe you can make even an argument for 2-4. But I still feel the Lions are just going to be a better team overall than Jacksonville and Indianapolis. But maybe worst case scenario, they split those games.
Yeah, I think so. I think 3-3 is a good floor. 5-1 is a good ceiling because that's a tough stretch at Green Bay, at Houston, because both of those teams have similar aspirations to the Lions as well.
Yeah.
So, wrapping things up here, they host Chicago on Turkey Day, Thanksgiving. Then they host Green Bay on Thursday Night Football in the following week. Then week 15, they're at Buffalo. Then in week 16, they're at Chicago. And then week 17 at San Francisco. In week 18, they end with Minnesota. This is a pretty tough stretch. I mean, floor wise, 2-4, I would say.
So I will actually say, I mean, I think you can make an argument floor wise for 1-5 because I think Chicago is a team, unlike for me at least when it comes to Green Bay, I think Chicago might actually be a team that can kind of give Detroit a little bit of trouble, just matchup wise overall. So I could see a world where maybe they lose both those games. We don't have to do that. I'm indifferent between 1-5 and 2-4. I'm very curious what Lions fans think, but I will say though, but they can lose to Green Bay, they can lose to Buffalo, they can lose to San Francisco, like those, and at minimum they can lose one of those Chicago games as well. I think they'll beat Minnesota.
2-4. I think they'll split with Chicago. Minnesota, they should win.
Minnesota, they better win. And so now I think when it comes to the ceiling here, it's like they do win both those games against Chicago, and then they lose one of the games between Green Bay, Buffalo, or San Francisco. I think to me that's going to be their. I mean, they could potentially win those. Like I can see them beating those teams, but is it likely though? Like I think it's tough that they're going to go into San Francisco on Monday Night Football, 2 weeks away from the postseason. It's going to be such a major game as well. Green Bay, I think, is going to be tough. Also, luckily those games are going to be home. Green Bay and Buffalo are. Green Bay, Buffalo will be, but then at the same time though too, they're going to be playing an outdoor game in Week 16 at Chicago. Like I think just one of those games they're going to lose. So that's why I think 5-1 might be their ceiling.
Okay, I was actually going to say 4-2. I just think that's a really tough stretch.
It's a tough stretch, but I think
go 5-1. If in best case scenario, I think 5-1 is probably.
Yeah, I think best case scenario, and I think that's reasonable. And so I think here, when looking at this now, have them at 8-9 as their floor, and then 15-2 as their ceiling. I would say this is going to be very, very similar range as we did for the Packers video, except the Packers, we had their floor at 9-8, while the Lions video was 8-9. But both had a ceiling at 15-2. And is it possible? I mean, technically, yes. I will say if I go back and look at our record prediction for our offseason recap, Ryan, you had them at 12-5. I had them at 11-6. So in the top of that bell curve of all the different possibilities that the Lions could have this year. I think that's probably going to be around that range. This is just they're one of the better teams, let alone in the NFC, but also in the NFL. They have a lot of momentum. They didn't really lose too much. I think that they improved on a lot, especially when it came to I think they improved the most in their deficiency areas, such as their secondary, as we talked about at the beginning of the show. So I believe when it comes to that aspect of it, a lot of the offensive side of the ball as well, they keep improving on. I will say we are recording this 8/12. So we're recording this a couple days before this video comes out. Did see Jahmyr Gibbs hurt his hamstring. I'm not sure on the severity of that, so that's something to monitor going into the season. If he will miss any time and how that might affect the overall dynamicness of the offense. But all that aside, still a lot of talent on this team. And also, too, I think they're playing for one of the best coaches in the NFL. I think these guys would literally run through a brick wall for Dan Campbell. So I think that helps out a lot with the growth of this team.
Yeah. No, I think the Lions, anything short of a Super Bowl appearance, I think would be a sad season for the Detroit Lions and their fan base, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
kind of crazy considering they didn't have a playoff win until last season. But
Yeah.
this team made it to the NFC Championship game. They were right there. They really should have won that game. They kind of gave it away. And so I think going back, getting your revenge, and making it to the Super Bowl is going to be what the Detroit Lions fans want. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and wrap this video up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Detroit Lions offseason. Also, let us know what you think their floor and ceiling will be in 2024. And on that, we will see you guys next time.